Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Lost in Translation event, in which the Sabellius is added to the game. So this week marks the 100th Guild War for Gems of War. We've been counting them up since the very first Guild War, and this is finally the 100th one. Of course, we'll be doing that on stream every single night, as we always do at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, except for tonight, where we're more so going to be prepping and doing the tasks, since, of course, the Tech League starts on Tuesday, so make sure all your defend teams and everything are good to go. But yeah, officially the 100th Guild War, and that's pretty much the biggest thing that we have going on this week. Aside from that, there are a few other things. So let's go over to the new troop, which is okay. Comes with a lot of brown purple arcanes for 200 each, so if you want to stock up on them, great time to do so. As far as the troop itself, it's basically like an alternative Grave Knight that in most situations just could be worse. You're better off just using any of the armor tier weapons, most notably Mang, or really any of them. But as far as what this does, it eliminates all armor from the first enemy, and then deals damage to all enemies. Biggest issue with this compared to something like Grave Knight, that shares the same color and similar mechanic, is that it cannot choose what it gets to eliminate armor on. It will always only do it onto the first slot, and similar to pretty much all dragons in the game, it does damage to all enemies, though not exactly at a 1-to-1 based on its magic, so it is getting a little bit less damage there. It does have Stealthy, which is pretty rare for a dragon, but overall likely will not be used compared to other armor tier options, compared to Mythics that could do it, Hero that could do it, just other lower rarity troops that could do it that already exist. Kind of makes this thing pretty obsolete and pretty much never going to be used, unfortunately. Though it does bring Dragon's Claw to 25 stars if you have everything for it. Speaking of which, of course, as far as the event key drop table, it is for Dragon's Claw. Some pretty good early game pickups as far as what the drop table is concerned. So every single thing that you see here, except for 6 things, is in a drop table. Of course, the 4 faction troops of the Wyrmrun troops are not in the drop table. The other 2 things that aren't are the Periton, which is occasionally given out through some guild wars, and the other thing is Horde Mimic, which is only found in Explore by constantly getting chests and hopefully getting very lucky off of a 5x chest. Aside from that, everything else that you see here is obtainable. Earlier on in the game, there's some pretty solid options. Dragon Soul, really good passive soul farming while also doing okay amount of damage. Its damage over time does fall off, as the max it could do is 20, and of course as time goes on, 20 damage is increasingly less damage overall. However, it's still okay, still a great amount of souls. Divinia is a great support option before you have other support options. A lot of mana accumulation, gets the cleanse, get a bunch of life. Pretty good in most dragon teams, especially if you have 50% mana start. The 2 mythics that are here are okay. Well, technically it's 3, but the 2 mythics that are here that can kind of do looping capability, they're decent. Like, they can end up spamming a little bit. There's generally better loopers out there, so they tend to not get used compared to those other options. As far as the third one, this was actually the one from one of the seasons. This is either the first or second time it's been available in Event Key Drop Table, but it's basically just a full AoE into some wild cards. Biggest issue with this is it creates so few wild cards that it's generally going to miss and not really work out too well. There's also a really high spell reduction here. Unfortunately, Tina 9000 tends to be effectively better. Even though it's 75% reduction instead of 50, it doesn't have any way to gain durability, and that's a big downside to it compared to some other things that have a similarly high spell reduction. So even though it's theoretically the highest, it's not necessarily always the best. And aside from that, there's some good supports here that you probably already have laying around, but you can get upgraded further. Like Dragonian Monk is one of the better barrier options in the game. It's a little bit towards the slower side as far as using it, because it takes a little while to figure out where to use it. However, still a really great 4x barrier option. And Egg Thief, really good mana accumulator, primarily only using gold farming teams that aren't really much of a thing anymore, though are still relevant nonetheless. It's also among one of the tankiest troops in the entire game, similar to that of Orb Weaver Hero Class, because it has both Stealthy, combined with the capability of summoning something that does not have Stealthy, also mana accumulating a ton, so really good at not dying. So for those harder fights, can definitely be pretty decent. Just needs a little bit of gold to get rolling. But overall, it's an okay event key drop table. To get the lower stuff, it's probably worth doing if you're missing some of the key low rarity stuff. As far as the mythics there, they're pretty average and underwhelming, as most dragons are in the current state of the game, unfortunately. So as I mentioned, we do have the 100th Guild War this week. We'll primarily be doing this on our stream when we mess with that every single night as we normally do for Guild War. We're definitely going to be try-harding it a little bit more than normal. I already bought up max stats so that we could have a little bit of a better time. Hopefully get our 30-0, because we haven't actually gotten one for a little while. We did move down in bracket to bracket 5, so hopefully we'll have a decent chance of going flawless, as we're definitely going to try as hard as we can to hopefully get a flawless on the 100th Guild War, because my guild actually did win the very first ever Guild War, the first one that ever occurred. We got first place, so obviously we are very far down compared to then, as we are very far away from bracket 1. which is pretty much where all the good loot is. Actually, that's not where the loot are. Can I not see the loot? But yeah, you get like a bunch of gems if you make like top few positions. Oh, there it is. But yeah, you get a lot of gems if you make the top few positions. Unfortunately, like every other bracket gets pretty much nothing, because this is all bracket 1 just right here, and this is every other bracket. So the comparison is pretty bad if you're in anything that isn't bracket 1, which of course is pretty much most of us. Anyways. Aside from that, we do have a ward event, pretty standard ward event, just extra spell damage combined with just tick rarity order. The one that you want to avoid is Obsidian Golem. You can identify it because it's the blue one, the ultra rare rarity one. As long as you just don't take that one, you should be perfectly fine for the ward event. Anyways, moving on to other things that we have going on throughout the week. This Tuesday, we're going to be having a faction event for the Wyrmrun faction. I believe this is the first Tuesday event we're having of it since they have fixed the issue. So when it was first released, it had a 50% mana start legendary, while also having the lack of skull spam on all the troops. They had some kind of other perk on them. However, they have fixed it since then, so now we have all the skull spam options. This makes it a little bit harder, actually, to win, because the main way that you would win at the higher difficulties, you know, when you're doing like a level 500 pure faction, is to keep casting the AoE cast, and you no longer have 50% mana start for it, and the enemy gains more of a benefit from skulls than you do, so you're going to have to cast the tanking ones a little bit more, the ones that gain attack and armor, I believe it is, and kind of spam those a little bit more to make sure you don't die, probably even double up on them instead of single up, just to make sure you have one for the final fight, as the skulls will be more in the enemy's favor than you will be in your own, so do have to be careful of that. Then we have Dragon's Claw Pet. We have a Thursday with the Dragonguard Class event, which is a decent hero class. I don't personally use it too often. However, it is the tankiest of the triple damage burning hero classes, so it has that going for it. There's also some decent dragon synergy teams with it. And aside from that, Friday we have what should be an invasion event. For whatever reason, one of the spoiler things showed invasion and bounty. However, it seems like it's going to be an invasion event, I am pretty sure. Anyways, as far as other things that we have going on this week, Soulforge does have a Arachne Weaver. I am actually going to be upgrading this thing probably tonight. Because this is the 100th Guild War in celebration. We will finally be maxing Arachne Weaver. Arachne Weaver is a really insanely good Guild War option, and hey, it's available this week, so definitely highly advise picking this up if you want a solid Guild War option. It can be ran on green, yellow, and purple day, all three of them. It has Stealthy while having Impervious, while having pretty much the tied lowest mythic mana cost, while having one of the best summons, actually literally the best summon of any trait in the entire game, Web Spinner, which has triple damage to pretty much everything, as long as you don't have immune. While also getting basically a full board clear when it gets a kill, while having true damage, while having 4 times web. It does a lot of things. Who knows when it will get nerfed, if ever, but it is very strong and arguably one of the strongest few Guild War options in the entire game. Oddly enough, we also have Ironhawk this week. So, if you've been saving for Ironhawk, now's your time to go get 2 Ironhawks if you don't already have it. Definitely at least 1, but definitely 2. 2 is really nice to have, as you can run pretty much most of the standard teams. Maybe even 3 if you want to go for the Dust Devil and your triple Ironhawk, if you have the resources for it. However, 1, 2, and 3, particularly 2 and 3, really good to have that many copies of this thing. It is the most efficient way to farm Vault events, as well as pretty much just in general when you're doing low-level Explore. It can pretty much instantly kill, not pretty much, literally, in one button press, it can kill low-level Explorers, specifically Explore 1, and if you're doing something like Nomopalooza, you can end up killing those in 2 casts by casting 2 things, like a Greed into a Dust Devil, or the, I should forget that one, Priest Name into Dust Devil, and you just win in 2 single casts instantly, and then boom, you just keep repeating that over and over again for a very high amount of value. You could basically win like 6 times per minute, which is very quick, given that the next best teams generally win about 4 to 4.5 times per minute, so it's getting an extra like 1.5 to 2 wins per minute when doing stuff like that, which is a lot of loot when you're considering something like a Vault event when they roll around. So if you can afford 2 or 3 Ironhawks, highly advise it. Otherwise, you might want a Weaver for the week, though it is super high priority to get Ironhawks. It's probably the highest priority thing in the entire game. Ferris Raw used to be good for that. He has the high soul gain, but nowadays, due to how Nomopaloozas work and everything, it is better just to go into that double Ironhawk, as that is the best way that you're going to be getting additional loot in the game. Aside from that, as far as weapons are concerned, surprisingly nothing too good. Just double checking here. They're all pretty average ones. Dragons aren't really used much in the current state of the game, so you don't necessarily need like the mana accumulating ones for it. You can if you want, of course. But yeah, pretty average weapons that you'd pretty much only get if you need them for kingdom upgrading purposes, or if you're just getting them for completionist sake, as nothing particularly stands out as relevant as far as weapons for Dragon's Claw are concerned. Anyways, let's go and get into a bunch of teams. As per usual, all these teams will be in the description below if you want to copy-paste any of them. Also, how on earth do you have 3 Horde Mimics? Also, keep in mind, Horde Mimic, just to reiterate, is not in the event key drop table. Even though it is from Dragon's Claw, it is only available from Explore Ideally Explore 12, though it is technically in all the Explore levels. You just have to get really lucky on a 5x chess. Anyway, so as far as World event is concerned, you can pretty much just spam Alana. We have Night Spider, it's all rogue restriction, pretty straightforward, easy event. You can do it with Core Zero, so it counts as a rogue, so you get even more value there. Next we have the lower variant of this. This only uses one Alana, the one that you get for free. It also uses other low rarity stuff. It uses Black Manacle instead of Abral Crystal in case you don't have the weapon, and it runs pretty much the same way as the other team, mostly spamming the Night Spider until you win. Next we have ourselves the low level team for the low range team, I should say, for factions. For the event tomorrow, it is a yellow-red restriction, though of course you could use any colored weapon you want. It is pretty much just a standard Guards Avatar, Sir Quinn Hadley team, just formed around current restrictions. Next we have the 100-500 team, which is pretty much standard Iron Gut Zugoff. This one uses Angry Mob for mana accumulation, as well as in case High King Iron Gut dies, you'll still have a backup summon. Harpy Mage will have Empower turn 2, because it ends up getting, with Enchant, it will have 12 mana on turn 1, and then once it comes back around, it'll have 4 full mana on turn 2, meaning even though it's fully mana blocked, it'll still have full mana on turn 2 due to the enchant potion, and you just take that out, get a bunch of value, and you're good to go. Next we have ourselves Pure Faction. This might be slightly different than how we showed it last time, but you basically just want to double up on Terror Worm and then double up on Great Worm. I think the first one I had single Terror Worm into triple Great Worm, though you definitely want to double up on the new, or not the new, but now that they have Skull Spam, now that they create skulls instead of having 50% mana start, you want to make sure you have a double tank in case you accidentally get really unlucky and one of these Terror Worms die. You'll have a backup Terror Worm. As long as you go into the final fight with 1 Terror Worm and 2 Great Worms, you should be perfectly fine to win. What you're doing with this guy is you're mostly gaining a bunch of armor and attack on whatever one is most frontmost. He does a little bit of mana accumulation, gains a bunch of durability, has a bunch of skull reduction, and overall he'll be the main way that you don't die, and you just keep poking him down slowly with AoE over top of the Great Worm. It will take a little bit longer to get him rolling now that he does not have 50% mana start anymore. However, it's still the same general premise where the main goal is to use Terror Worm to tank and use the Great Worms to slowly chip them down until you win. And that's pretty much the game plan for the faction. And lastly, the Dragonguard class. We have a little bit of a mixed team here just for a pretty standard just AoE. We're using Achi with the new kind of useless troop. However, keep in mind, it does get 20%, including Dragonguard this week. So if you want to utilize that for a bit of extra damage here and there, Dragonguard, as well as all, I believe, dragons from Dragon's Claw, or the ones that are getting it, are getting a 20% boost, so you can use things like this hero and other similar things for quite a bit extra value than you would be able to normally, which means this thing is even worse than that, which is already kind of bad with how he has it there, but it's good enough for a Thursday class event. If nothing else, it gets the job done based on the restriction. Anyways, guys, I'll wrap it up here. As I mentioned, we will be covering Guild War every single night this week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the channel, as we do every single night. It's pretty much almost the time when this video will be going up as well, so feel free to stop by here on the channel, as I'll be covering quite a bit with Guild War this week. We'll probably be focusing it primarily as the main thing that we do on each one of the nightly streams, as yeah, to celebrate the 100th Guild War. We'll probably have a little bit extra codes as well and stuff like that in celebration of the special occasion. Anyways, guys, thanks as always for stopping by. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. All the teams are in the description, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.